It's the second week of August and you walk outside, the sun beating down on your face. You glance around at your garden and it's unrecognizable. It seems like in the blink of an eye, it went from a thriving, happy, fertile space to a scene of struggle and decay, withering away while you sit in the air conditioning, if you're anything like me. Well, 3 days ago, I walked out here after an absence that I would consider extensive. The garden had entered a state of neglect. To me, immediately, I felt like failure, and I felt like it was over, like I should just give up. But the next day, clouds rolled in. It was 70 degrees, just miraculous for this peak summer to have a moment of brevity. Something light and comfortable and exhilarating snapped me out of my mental state. Upon further inspection, it wasn't a total failure. While it may not be doing great out here, it was doing fine. Did seeing the space in a literally new light shift my entire perspective? No, but it did make me realize that, like myself, my garden had gone through an intense and trying period of harsh conditions, and the same that I would do for myself, I should do for the garden. So I understood that a little bit of optimism and patience can go a long way to help my space bounce back from an extensive period of neglect. So how does it get like this? For me, it was a mixture of external and internal struggles. External, of course, being the harsh conditions of summer. I encountered pests. I had struggles with time. Internally, I was definitely struggling as well with motivation, maybe due to the external. Also, my physical ability. I got really sick for a while and could not come out and take care of the garden. Also just inexperience. I would consider myself experienced enough to have a successful garden, but there are also just things from nowhere that just pop up and I'm not equipped to deal with. For the first time, I had Japanese beetles all over the place, didn't know what to do with them. I did just ignore them and they wiped out some plants. These are things that I would encounter all year throughout a gardening season and just human existence. But in the peak summer, in the brutal heat, those elements can compound in a way that is enough to give me second thoughts and to postpone things that need to happen and to sort of dread coming outside or to dread coming out to see what has happened in my absence. So also internal anxiety of hypotheticals, making it difficult to even enter the space. Not ideal, but normal. Well, how do I fix it? Well, first, I wouldn't say that it's broken. So adjusting the mindset is an important first step to understand going into it that nothing is a failure and nothing is so far gone that it can't recover. And that can help a lot as far as confidence goes when you're getting back to work after an absence. And to feel good for even trying. This might be the final step for a lot of beginning gardeners to have that really bad season and then just decide, well, it's not for me. Congratulate yourself for getting back to it. And I congratulate myself for coming back to face the damage. Even though I know I would, and I'm never actually going to give up, it can be a hard argument with yourself to get the ball rolling again. So be proud for that. So moving forward, as pessimistic as it sounds, dialing back expectations can leave you pleasantly surprised. There's part of me that over time learns to dial in to a smaller goal than a major transformation, and that is still rewarding. Don't miss out on small goals because you're so focused on major goals. But to physically transform the space, to get back to normal, before gutting everything, it's important to sift through the rubble, so to speak, to evaluate all of the damage and see really what is a loss and what maybe can bounce back. But don't necessarily abandon it just because it's ugly. There are some things I'll hang on to that look bad that I trust will be okay. If it disturbs you to look at it, just get rid of it. And once you've got a foundation, I think you will be pleasantly surprised that there are survivors. Now is the time to feed and heavily water your beds or whatever space you're working with. A healthy layer of compost, a bunch of water, any liquid nutrients you might want to add as well, and start again. I don't want to say start over because it's still the same. You're just putting a new overlay for a different season. Most of my tomatoes are dead, probably the end of tomato season for me, so I'm transitioning from summer garden into late summer, early fall. There's still plenty of things to plant, so I'm laying out new seeds and I'm starting seeds indoors, and I'm just envisioning what I want my garden to be a month from now, 2 months from now. There's plenty growing opportunity left in this season, so just because your summer garden got wiped out, maybe every squash plant you have ever had has been eradicated by squash bugs and squash vine borers, but that's not the end. So I'm gonna keep trying. I'm gonna not let it get to me. So I'm just gonna take what I learned from this process, it's not a failure, and I'm gonna move ahead. I'm gonna push forward. But what did I learn? Well, I am left to analyze the biggest hurdles I had that got me to this point and assess what can be worked on. Did I struggle with environmentals? Did I struggle with situational issues? Was it a personal issue? And what can I do to change those things in the future? Or at least what can I do to accommodate knowing these struggles ahead of time? How can I improve in those areas so maybe the damage is not so extensive next time? Well, for the environmental issues, it was really hot. Moving forward, when it's going to be very hot again, I'm going to take preventative measures. So my space is equipped for the intense conditions. I've got shade cloth, gonna mulch. Maybe you could do irrigating so you don't have to come out in the heat and water with the pests. I'm rotating areas where I plant things. I'm starting again over and over, every time it fails, a little bit different. Insect netting, any succession sowing or interplanting, these little habits I can establish in my failures to just improve the way I conduct the garden moving forward. And for the personal problems, like when I do feel dread about going in the garden, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to turn what I love into a chore, because I know when I feel ready to come back, it will still be here. And in the meantime, I try to stay inspired. So I go look at other gardens or watch videos about people's gardens or plan for when it's not so brutal outside. Something that still reminds me why I love to do this without having to subject myself to the dread and focus on what I love about it. And if it's just too much, if I find next year I'm struggling in the same way, I'm willing to accept going into this that maybe peak summer gardening is just not for me. And maybe I'm just the type of person that's perfectly suited to having a beautiful spring garden, let things suspend until things cool off, and then I have a beautiful fall garden. There's no shame in not growing extensively the entire season. If it's causing me dread, creating distress, and it's isolating me from what I love about this activity, I'm completely willing to just eliminate that, at least until I'm ready for the challenge again, because there are enough little challenges in gardening, and if it's just going to bum me out, I don't necessarily need it. Knowing when to draw the line can be as rewarding as any other success. But most importantly, I'm not going to let a bad season leave a bad impression on the entirety of this activity. So I'm going to continue to be kind to myself, the same way I would be kind to my garden. I'm going to try new things constantly with reasonable expectations, anticipating not perfection. I'm going to enjoy the experience and stop when I don't. And I'm going to celebrate every victory. If I have 50 good cherry tomatoes and no big, ugly heirloom tomatoes, that's still a win to me. And maybe it doesn't compare to years before or to my neighbors, but I'm still going to be proud of what I have accomplished. But beyond that, thanks for watching, and happy gardening to you. I'll see you next time.